Hey, let's go for a ride. I got something really neat I want to show you. There's a tombstone in the back of the cemetery here that intrigues me. And at the very end of this video, you will see that tombstone. It's a very ominous tombstone from when a little girl passed away in the 1880s. So y'all be sure and hang on to that. Good morning from the deep south, South Carolina, the Salem Black River community. I am standing on the site of what is known as the Brick Church, Salem Black River Presbyterian Church. This church was founded in 1759 by Scotch-Irish settlers. They were the settlers that settled this area heavily. Back then, the land was donated by Captain David Anderson. It was a log church until 1768. And then at that time, the log church was torn down and a frame building was built. And you hear traffic because this road is kind of busy actually for a road just way out in the country. But anyway, a brick church was built, but not this one. And then they wanted a bigger church, so they expanded and they built this one in 1846. The one that was built in 1802 was considered one of the first brick churches in the state of South Carolina. The bricks, what's interesting, among the many interesting things about this church, is that the bricks from this church were made on these grounds and put up here. So I like this church. I used to live about a mile that way as the crow flies, and I've been here often. I've only been inside 2 or 3 times. My son and his wife got married in this church. It is an old historic church. It has a slave gallery up on top, which was the bigger churches back then had a slave gallery. The slaves would be on top. The masters, the white folks, would be down in the bottom on the pews, and the podium was actually halfway. So if you were on the ground floor, you were looking way up to see the preacher, and if you were in the balcony, you were looking kind of down at the preacher. They have since moved the podium down to a more reasonable level. Shield, it looks like a shield there. In the very, very early 1800s, there was a massive earthquake in Charleston, and it hit most of South Carolina, honestly. So what they've done, what they did, is those are rods that go completely through the church and help hold the building together as reinforcement in case another earthquake were to hit. A lot of the old buildings in South Carolina have these massive columns. These massive columns are awesome. And you can see one of those shields up on the top there too. Again, holding the building, well, reinforcing the building. It's not really holding it together. The old trees with the Spanish moss hanging off them adds to the mystique of this place. Right there is a building that was built at the same time of the church in, I think it was 1846. And these are real shutters, massive shutters. This is the Salem Black River Church Cemetery. It's been here since 1794, which is kind of odd because the church was founded in the 1750s. So for 40 years, supposedly, there was nobody buried here. This was donated, the land here was donated by Robert Weatherspoon, who died in 1837. Yet the land for the church was donated by Captain David Anderson. Now I believe David Anderson sold his land to Robert Weatherspoon, and therefore it's the same land basically. All this whole farm was, the Weatherspoons had a huge plantation here. As a matter of fact, this used to be known as the Brick Church on the Plantation. The name of the plantation was Coldstream. There is nothing left of that now. Supposedly, it was within view of the church, I think, over that way. And they had massive gardens. Mr. Weatherspoon died and passed on to his son. And his son had a huge interest in horticulture, as did his wife. So they hired a professional German horticulturist who came and made massive gardens, beautiful hedgerows, and it was even featured in a magazine in the very, very early 1900s. I think it was called the Century magazine. So what happened was, as far as Coldstream is concerned, a farmer bought the land in 1911, I think it was, and he just took and plowed all of that under and just made it part of the farm. There's no evidence of a house. The house itself burnt in 1950. And I've looked all over the internet, and I've looked in a couple of the history books I have, and I can't find a picture of that house nowhere. But the house is gone. The land, Coldstream, plantation, I think it all still belongs to it's all one still and belongs to a farmer. But other than that, I really don't know much about it. There is a rumor, however, that there's a cemetery behind the cemetery, but it's heavily wooded and it's hard to get back there to take a look. And I will show you what the dense woods looks like here in just a second. To me, this is a classic cemetery with the magnolia trees, with the Spanish moss hanging, surrounded by wrought iron, Salem Black River sign overhead, the old tombstones inside that you could expect ghost stories to come from. And there are some that do come from here. There are supposedly hauntings and ghosts here. I've been here several times and I've never seen anything. You know, granted, I haven't been here at 3 o'clock in the morning either, but a lot of that's just hyped up. The base story for that's even false. It's they talk about a Presbyterian priest. There no such thing as a Presbyterian priest. So the story is flawed to begin with, but I'm not here to debunk that story. I'm here to talk about this church and this fantastic cemetery. This is the entrance right here. This cemetery is closed each evening after dark. Trespassers will be prosecuted. That had to be posted because of ghost hunters coming in here and being where they shouldn't be. There are rumors of occultic activity here. I don't place a lot of stock in that. However, that is a salt circle. Pagans believe a circle of salt will rid the place of evil spirits, of which this place I don't think has any. I am just inside the gate of the cemetery. That's the back gate back there. Sorry about that shakiness. There are biting flies here and they're trying to tear me up. I'm not sure what the point of this is, if there is even a point to it. But there is a umbrella. That side of this is neat. This big, huge magnolia tree and a branch just basically goes over the fence. I have a personal connection here. This is the grave of Walter W. Tombstone. He was one of the top 10 landscape artists in his day. He was born in 1882 and he died in 1948. The personal connection is I lived in his house for a while. It had a lot of his stuff up in the attic, and I read his diaries from the 1920s and the 1940s. This was his wife and her sister. The house originally belonged to those two. Their dad figured they were never going to get married. They were in their 30s. They weren't married. So he built them a house for them living together. Well, then just a few years later, she met him and they ended up getting married anyway. And they all lived in the same house, a really neat house that I enjoy living in. That little girl with the tombstone, with the ominous warning, is back over in that corner, in the back corner of this cemetery. And we'll be there in just a few minutes. Tombstones are hard to read because of the shape they are in. Because of my vision, my depth perception is not that great, and it makes it hard to read them. So it's hard for me to get details. This is the back gate. It's locked. This is supposedly, there is another cemetery back there, a small one. I've not seen any proof of it, but it would make sense if the church was founded in the 1750s and the present graveyard was, oldest tombstone is 1770 something. For 20 years, where were they burying their people? I know some people had plantations, they had family graveyards. So it would make sense that there are tombstones back there somewhere, but that's such a heavily wooded area that I don't want to go back there. I don't want to tear nothing down. I don't want to mess with copperhead snakes, which are pretty bad this year. And I'm just going to wait till the winter time just to go look and see. I did see a video where someone said, here's the proof, and they showed a couple tombstones. They went into no detail about how the tombstones were, the names, or anything on them. And I really wish they would have. So when it gets winter time, I may come over here and poke around a little bit. But I want to be careful because this is private land and I have no business over here abusing anything. Down this road is where that tombstone is with the ominous inscription from the little girl. Here it is. The grave of Jenny Louise Warren, aged 1 year and 9 months and 27 days. Taken away from the evil to come. July 8th, 1889. Taken away from the evil to come. How anonymous is that? This has intrigued me since I first seen it years ago. You know, kids died, adults, people just died from different things back then. I have looked for evidence of possibly a plague. None of the tombstones around here indicate that a lot of people died in that year. The tombstones of her sisters, which are buried next to her, indicate they lived into the 1930s and maybe even, I think one of them lived to be the 1940s. But this one died as a little child, and it didn't take much to kill a child. Childhood diseases back then would kill you. There was no immunizations. Miss Jenna Louise Warren, aged almost 2 years, I'm saying, taken away from the evil to come. I love the cemetery, I love this history, and I love this church. I've been here several times. I'm kind of a geek about this kind of stuff. And I'm going to do further investigation into the back rumored graveyard in due time, but with proper respect. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did.